The executive order. Plenty of executive orders are mundane and a legitimate part of a president's constitutional duty. But far too many executive orders today are nothing short of decrees, just like a monarch, a king, would issue. I want it to be this way. They have the same effect as legislation. If the founders had considered executive orders a remote possibility, the Constitution would have never been ratified. The Constitution doesn't even mention executive orders. Every president has issued at least one of them, except for William Henry Harrison, who died, I think he died like 30 days into office, so he didn't have a chance to write anything down. So they're just accepted now as a normal part of the job. But Congress isn't powerless in the face of executive orders. They can refuse to fund something from an executive order or pass legislation nullifying its effect. But they usually just go along with them. Yeah, let him take care of that. Less than 4% of executive orders have been modified by Congress. Many executive orders bypass Congress by being aimed at the regulation agencies that now exist under the executive branch, thanks to Franklin Roosevelt. That way, executive orders now have the force of the law, but they're not constitutional. Executive orders can deal with the mundane as well as major things. It's hard to judge our worst presidential overreachers on sheer numbers alone. However, it's not a shock that FDR issued by far the most of any president. It is FDR that issued 3,721 executive orders, over twice as many as the guy in second place. Come on, guess. Come on. I hate that guy. 1,803. For a little perspective, our first 15 presidents issued a combined total of 143. Next to FDR, no other president in our history attempted to reshape so much of American life by decree until we get to this guy. President Obama, he didn't issue 3,000 or even 1,800. He did 276 executive orders. But it was the power of those orders. He instituted 560 major regulations, classified by the Congressional Budget Office as having significant economic or social impact. That's 50% more the regulations than George W. Bush's presidency. And remember, everybody thought he was a fascist. Obama blamed an obstructionist Congress for forcing him to make rules without going through the legislative process. Obama and his supporters see that as heroic, but there is nothing constitutional about it. In fact, gridlock is a part of our system. It was designed to be there. They wanted people to slow down because they knew people knee-jerk reaction, something would happen, and they could change the way our country was run. So they wanted, the Constitution was a speed bump. It doesn't even talk about executive orders, and it does not equal the Constitution. Executive orders, however, are the most efficient way for progressives to implement their agenda. Remember, this is Woodrow Wilson. He didn't like the Constitution. He wanted a different system, and so they built it right underneath our noses. It's also fun for them. As President Clinton's advisor Paul Begala said in 1998, a stroke of the pen, law of the land. Kinda cool. Not really. By executive order, President Obama decreed the U.S. joined the Paris Climate Accord, DACA, the Clean Power Plan, and transgendered restrooms. The overreach wasn't limited to executive orders. He authorized spying on U.S. citizens through Section 702 of FISA, violating our Fourth Amendment in the Constitution. His administration used the IRS to target political opponents like Tea Party members, and he ordered military action in Libya in 2011 without any congressional permission, as required by law. This is a problem, perhaps for only half of America. But then, Will those same kind of tactics be okay with that same half of America when he decides to use them? America's misunderstanding of how the executive branch is supposed to operate causes us to buy into the cult of personality, believing, well, this guy's the enemy. I want this guy, or this guy's the enemy, so I want the next guy. So we had the cult of Obama, and now, for many, the cult of Trump. But that's not the way it's supposed to work, nor would we ever want it to be. As soon as President Obama took office, he issued an executive order instructing the Office of Management and Budget and the heads of the executive departments to rescind all rules and all policies that had anything to do with President Bush's executive orders. So the executive order is kind of like the ultimate trump card, no pun intended, that magically undoes whatever the last guy you didn't like about that. He can undo it. And the next guy will undo what he did. That's why we have to have the Constitution, and laws need to originate in Congress. President Trump's reaction has already been swift. If you liked what President Obama did, it's gone. He issued 58 executive orders in his first year, undoing everything that Obama did, or almost. Using the presidency as a political weapon is far outside the scope of the Constitution, and it's getting more and more absurd with every election. We're going to elect a harsher king to exact our vengeance on your king. That seems like the desperate cries now that we're hearing from Americans. You got this guy in, well, we've got Oprah. Oh my gosh, please. We have to stop using the presidency and executive orders as weapons.